welcome to another episode of the Doctors Pursley. I am Dr. Jacob Pursley.
And I'm Dr. Lisa Pursley.
And it's great to see you all again. And today we're going to be discussing some of Dr. Lisa Pursley's expertise in the field of education, educational psychology, different things that she's studied. And she's going to give some advice today specifically about routine and structure during times of isolation. And a lot of us are home with our families at this time, and we're not sure how long the isolation and the forced isolation will continue. So we're looking forward to this program. And before we begin with some of the practical things, the Bible talks a lot about structure and routine and the importance of it. And I was thinking about Daniel in the Old Testament, chapter 6, and it said that as it was his custom, he would pray 3 times a day. So we see that he had this structure, this into his life that he did on a daily basis, morning, noon, night, 3 times for prayer. So there's an idea of that in the Bible. And also in the Psalms, David talks about that 7 times a day he praised God for his righteous rules. That's in Psalm 119, 164. So we do see the patterns and structure in the Bible. There's other places we could refer to for that. But I just want to say that if you do not have structure and there's not a routine and you're not guiding your families and yourselves in a structure and a routine, that there's going to be chaos. There's going to be no growth, and there's going to be a lot of problems in the home. So it's good to develop these things now. The one passage in the Bible that I was thinking about was actually the entire book of Judges, where the Israelites always did what was right in their own eyes. And every time they did that, there was problems. And so we don't want our children just to do what's right in their own eyes. And we shouldn't either. We need to be guided, and there's a structure. And I think you had some things you wanted to share about that as well from the scriptures.
Yeah, I wanted to share, whether you have children or not, daily routine, especially in times like this, is very, very important for us spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and for our own well-being, to have a structure and a purpose. Because especially if you're Christians, Colossians 3:17 talks about whatever we do, doing it for the Lord and finding that purpose. And it says, and whatever you do in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. And later on in verse 23 and 24, it says, whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. And so I think through having a daily routine that is focused and purposeful is very important for all of us, whether you're a single, a couple, whether you have young children, older children. It's very important to remember that we are doing everything in our daily lives for the Lord and for a purpose.
Excellent. Well, is there some advice you have for parents with their children? Where would you like to begin with that?
Well, what I thought we could do is I have kind of sketched an outline of what I think is a good structure for a daily routine from waking up to bedtime that I think is good all around for children of any age. I'm doing online teaching right now, and one thing I've noticed is that some of my students have no structure to their day at the moment. They roll out of bed, click on their camera, they have, my class, and then no structure throughout the day. They go to bed at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and it's not healthy. So I thought that what we could do is to go over a basic, what I think is a good and healthy routine.
Okay. Well, let's go over that. Sounds wonderful. Okay. And to say that not only are you teaching online classes, you have we have 2 children, yes. One a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old. So we're at that stage where you really do need structure. I mean, we all need structure. So what is your advice?
So I think having a daily routine sketched out that your children and that you're going to follow is very important. Especially Monday through Friday, and weekends can be a little bit different. But I think it's very important that you maintain getting up at a normal time, You know, how you normally would get up, you know, if you were going to school, going to work, having that normal morning routine where you eat breakfast as a family, you get ready by a certain time, you are dressed, teeth brushed, hair done, all that kind of stuff in the morning, and that you are ready for lessons or classes, whether you have online lessons or whether you are homeschooling yourself, to have that in the morning. And I think, you know, what we know from educational psychology, the more challenging classes should be done in the morning. So things like math, the language arts, science, geography, plan for those activities to be after breakfast, before lunch.
That's great. Well, I was just thinking about your routine that you have kept ever since I've known you. We've been married now for over 20 years, and you're up about 5 in the morning, sometimes earlier, with a workout. And after your workout, you have your routine to prepare yourself for the day. Even during the isolation, you still dress up really nice. You still put your makeup on. You make your hair look nice. And you're ready to go before the kids and before I'm up. And so I know you still continue that routine, and that's been really healthy for our kids.
Yes, I think it's very important. You know, again, everything you do is for the purpose of serving the Lord and maintaining that health in your family. And I think specifically for moms, it's very important to be the one to structure that morning time and morning routine for your kids, no matter what age they are, whether they're 4 or whether they're in junior high or even, you know, high school students. They really need that as well. So, you know, as you're planning your day, like I said, plan for the more mentally challenging subjects in the morning after breakfast and before lunch. I think it's good, even teenagers, you know, have structured breaks in between your classes. And, you know, kids need snacks, but it's very important to have healthy snacks. We know that things like vegetables, raw vegetables, nuts, walnuts, things like that really do help the brain to learn better, focus better, process better. So, you know, and the amount of time that you give your students breaks can vary depending on how old they are. Like I know our son, he definitely needs breaks in between his classes. So he has about a 10-minute break where he has free time to do whatever he wants to in those 10 minutes in between classes.
That's wonderful.
And then, you know, you have your structured lunch time at normal time, you know, typically between 12 and 1:30, I would say, is good to have a nice, healthy, light lunch where you come together as a family and then you talk about maybe something that you've learned in your online lessons or classes that day. So that's how I would structure the morning until lunchtime.
That's great. Great advice.
What else do we want to cover? After lunch, I think it's good to have your more active classes. So you can do things like sports, PE. You know, if you have, like our son sometimes has online sports lessons where the teacher gets on and he takes the iPad outside and they do different things. There's also really good online things, particularly on YouTube, that you can do for young children. There's a program called PE with Joe, and he's a guy from the UK that does 30-minute workouts specifically for kids, and our kids love it. If you have older teenagers, you can go to YouTube channels like Self and The Body Project, and it's good to do it with your students as well. So you have your more active classes after lunch. And
I just wanted to say that, you know, if you're a family that has had chaos in your family, rushing in the morning, rushing at night, now you're at home with your children, maybe another 20 days, another month. We don't know how long the forced isolation will continue, but now is the time to begin to establish new routines, healthy routines in your family. One of the things I just wanted to mention that we're doing as a family, and it's a new routine, but it's become a routine. And my father, Dr. Pursley, you've seen some of his videos, and if you haven't, please watch those. He has said that it takes around 30 days to establish a new habit or like a new routine. And the new routine for us has been Bible memorization. And so my son will wake up in the morning, and Lisa, Dr. Lisa, will have him read some books, but he knows that he's going to come to this table. He has the same place of work that he always works at, so he knows this is his work table. He opens up his notebook, he opens up the Bibles, and he begins to write the verses down that he's memorizing for that week. And he's memorizing the same verse in 5 different languages, and he's been doing this now since our isolation time. It's been about a month or so. And now he knows the routine, writing verses in the morning, writing them in the afternoon. And then by the end of the week, we're going to record his verses in these 5 languages and put them on his YouTube channel. So that's been a great new routine that even after the isolation is finished, we can continue because it's become a routine. Yeah, I don't know if you have anything you want to say about sitting at the same place.
One thing I want to mention before we go on with the routine is it's very important for your students and even for you, if you're working from home. To have an area in your home, if possible, that is just for that. So like our son knows everything he does is at this table, and so normally his workstation with all of his books and everything is here. I have my own for when I'm teaching, because normally he and we have classes at the same time. I'm teaching and he's taking them, and sometimes he's actually in my English class online from here while I'm in another room. But the most important thing is that your children have a private space that is their own, away from toys, away from noise, not in the kitchen, if at all possible. Now I know, depending on your home, it might be challenging, but as much as you possibly can, get them a space that is private, just for their studies and for their materials. So after you do your more active activities after lunch, then it's good to get more into the quiet things like art, your art and music activities like that, and then to have dinner together again as a family, like we normally have dinner around 6:00, and that sort of begins the winding down of our day. Another family habit that we've gotten into is having in the evening, in schools they sometimes call it sustained silent reading, where either collectively or individually everybody spends a certain amount of time reading books quietly. And it's a great way to end your daily routine. But we have chosen, because our children are young, we are reading through the Chronicles of Narnia together as a family in the evenings. And our children really enjoy it. And it's a nice way to wind down that routine. And then our children, they know that after that, they get their baths, they get ready for bed, they brush their teeth, and then we have our nightly routine where they, go to bed at a reasonable time, just like they would if they were going to school.
Do you have any suggestions for children with special needs at this time with their parents? Because a lot of times they're going to be at school, they have a teacher that works with them, and their routines got all messed up. Do you have anything that you'd like to say to that?
Yeah, it has become very challenging for some families that have children with special needs. And again, it depends on what the special needs are. I know some families where it's been great because their children are not out where they're, afraid of things, particularly families that have children with autism. It's actually been easier having them at home because, they feel safer and it's cut down on a lot of that. But, other children, I would say, it's going to take a lot of prayer. Reach out to people. Maintain that strict routine where your children know that exactly what is going to happen every minute of the day. I would suggest having, depending on your child, either a written out chart, poster form, or a digital chart that they can look to every single day. Because normally with special needs kids, a teacher would have that at school. They would have some form of a chart that your child would know, okay, now I do this, now I do that. And you can ask the teacher if they have something like that at school, and you can recreate that in your home for your kid, because that is going to be the biggest thing that is going to help you, is having that routine for your child. No matter what their special need is, it's, that they know from minute to minute what is going to happen in the day, and you stick to that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I also like to say, if you would like to message Dr. Lisa Pursley about her any questions, she's a doctor in special education and educational psychology. She can definitely help you with those things. So put a message in the box, or you probably can find our email address, the doctor's Pursley at gmail.com somewhere. Any last words before we close the program out?
One last thing that I would say is, a great way to wind down the week. In these times, it's really hard to kind of feel like you're in Groundhog's Day. Every day is the same. But, particularly for our kids, they know that on Saturdays with no classes, we do things that are fun. We get out the games. Our children like to play board games. We have either on Friday or Saturday night, pizza family movie night, where we either order pizza or order takeout, and we all sit around and we make popcorn and watch a movie. And, that is our kind of weekend routine to sort of relax, and as a way for them to feel like the week has been completed and that they're not just, bleeding from one day into the next. Yeah. So find fun things to do, particularly on Saturday, that you only do on the weekend.
Yeah, and my last exhortation or advice would be, on Sundays, try to, as much as possible, set it aside for the Lord Jesus, who has saved us. He's given us life, and He's given us eternal life. And so if you can join an online church, please do that, and make sure you continue to keep that prayer time with your family and the Word with your family during that time, and make that part of your routine. That spiritual aspect of your routine is probably the thing that binds everything together as a family. And for single moms, you're the head of the home. So, and for mothers that are the only Christian in the family, you are the spiritual head of the home. And so make sure that you take that spiritual leadership responsibility with your children. Even if your husband is not with you in faith, it's still your responsibility that God has given you. It's an amazing calling. You'll do a wonderful job. And so just want to exhort those listeners that might in those things. So, well, thank you for joining our program, and we're looking forward to seeing Dr. Lisa Pursley again for further programs. So God bless you all.
God bless.